Welcome to the SPR Sports News Podcast. Plan on doing many of these. This is going to be the first one. Here are some of the big topics coming up. We have KC Chiefs. Is it an end of an era? We have Dana White. Has he been bought out by Paramount and is their puppet? Or is it just because of the first couple cards and who is headlining them? And also, other NFL big names injured. Why is everyone getting injured like this? Plus, a tiny bit of info on why are the New York Yankees, the most historic franchise in baseball, doing absolutely nothing. Let's jump right into it. We're going to start with the most recent. We're going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to start with the Green Bay Packers. We're going to start with the injuries of the NFL and the big storylines going on. Unfortunately, this weekend, an issue that's been going on is the injuries. Pat Mahomes, done for the season. Yes, the season is over, but doesn't mean that an injury doesn't hurt the team long term. A lot of players come back from an injury and they just don't have the movement, the pop, maybe the power they did after an injury. Definitely at the quarterback position. It's funny, him being Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady both tore their ACL in their 9th season. It is weird that their trajectory is like this. I don't understand it. I'm personally not a big Pat Mahomes or Tom Brady guy at the moment. I'm a New York Giants fan, so I could really care less about the AFC teams as much as I pay attention to the NFC teams, but I still respect the greatness. So Mahomes is injured. Now we go to Green Bay Packers. Micah Parsons, the same thing, tears his ACL. You have Watson getting injured. Luckily, it does not look long term. Watson might only miss a week or two. Some people say he's game to game, but I don't believe that. You just got a chest and shoulder injury. I'm assuming he's going to miss this next week, maybe two, and they might just be like, hey, we'd rather you be back for the postseason instead of we're going to rush you back to try to push for this number one seed or the division. That's my personal opinion. That's what I would do as a head coach. But you know what? You see what happens when you run out someone that has a knee injury already and you run them out there and their knee just goes like Pat Mahomes. Maybe if you're injured, don't play, take a couple weeks off, even though you're not in or in the playoffs. This year, we have lost so many players to these ACLs and Achilles injuries to a level higher than any other year in NFL history. We have not had this many torn Achilles and ACLs combined ever. Reasoning, some people are just going to say the fields, which that has to be a factor. 100% has to be the factor. The grass either comes up too easily or the turf, or it doesn't come up as easy. I think turf is a big factor in general. They need to go to all natural grass every field. And people are like, oh, but that's a big purchase for the NFL owners. Stop that bullshit. These owners, every single one of them, are making a profit. Even the worst teams are still making profits. It's just the truth. So, yes, they can get their fields better. And once a team gets a little bit better and has a better record, the money they make goes up like 5 times to 10 times the amount. So a team like Tennessee Titans, yes, they're not going up as much at the moment. But once, give it a couple years, they got some picks, their team will form up. They're in a tough division this year for sure. But in 3 years from now, is the division going to be as tough as it is right now? We don't know. And the AFC is just always super competitive. They're so competitive with young quarterbacks too. But you can say that across the league now. Really, the only 2 old quarterbacks are Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford, Mr. MVP. Well, you could toss in Phillip Rivers. Welcome back. What the hell? We'll talk about that here shortly. So, back to the injuries. I think fields are first priority. All the owners should get rid of turf. It is stupid. You've heard an endless amount of players coming out in their podcasts and everything talking about this turf. It feels like they're on a slip and slide. They shouldn't be playing on it. It has caused multiple injuries. MetLife Stadium has caused endless amount of ACLs and Achilles injuries, and to their own team. Why the fuck do they still have this? Plus, on top of it, the Giants are like top 5 most money of any organization in NFL. I know the team sucked for 10 plus years, but they still make that much money. Why do you still have this turf? Get rid of it. Next would be just the speed and power of the game. If you look back 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, just with analytics in general, more speed, more power, more endurance, all that stuff adding up in one. Just the jump cuts, everything like that has changed so much that it has just caused more injuries. Like the offensive linemen 30 years ago were not as big and strong as offensive linemen are today. The defensive linemen were not as strong and fast combined as they were today. Same thing with the wide receivers. 30 years ago, they weren't as fast with the cuts and the strength and everything as they were today. More power, more speed on a human body, more vulnerability for an accident to happen. And that's really the case with the injuries too. Now I'm going to get more into the games. Kansas City Chiefs, Mahomes is out. The season's already over. Travis Kelce, is he going to end off the year and his career catching footballs from another quarterback? Is this it? Is this what they're going to do? Or is he going to possibly come back next year? My personal opinion, this is it. He's already talked about it a little bit. He hasn't confirmed it up to this date, and I was looking at this endlessly. People are trying to say, oh, he's retiring. It's rumored. He hasn't confirmed it as of this date. I do believe he does retire. I do believe his last catch is going to be by a different quarterback. Or he could honestly say that, hey, we're out. Let some of the young kids see what you got for next year. He could do that too, because how he talks about the team and the money for the team, I could see him sitting out. It could be the case. His last catch was from Pat Mahomes. Do I think that it's a definite that he retires? No, I don't. He could also look at it as like, oh, I didn't get a good last run with Pat Mahomes. He got injured. I know I'm not myself. His contract is up. He could restructure for a lot less for 1 year, just so he can be a part of the team more of than a big payment of the team. Now, the last thing with the Chiefs, Andy Reid. You have this fascination with just speedy wide receivers. It's great. You have a lot of speed on your team. But you could see the difference between guys on your team this year not being able to get open and just thinking they're just going to outrun people in zone coverage. That's just not the case. And other teams that have pure route runners, like Detroit Lions, they have speed. They might not be as fast as some of the wide receivers on the Chiefs, but they have great route running. The Seahawks, possibly the best route running in the whole NFL. Smith and Jigba has been insane with his route running. That man makes some of the best cuts. It looks like a prime Devontae Adams cuts. And talking about prime Devontae Adams, we have Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. The route running there is just absurd. I would be very happy if I'm Matthew Stafford, the most spoiled quarterback when it comes to wide receivers in history. Having Megatron, having these guys, like he just gets spoiled. But back to the Chiefs, Andy Reid, he needs to realize that there was too much on the shoulders of Pat Mahomes. Needs to realize if you're going to come back, which you never know. Andy Reid might say, hey, it's end of an era. Do I really want to restructure and do all this stuff? Or do I want to call it? He's an old man. Knowing him, he's going to probably get a year to try to figure stuff out, try to build this team to a good spot and get fired. That's more like how coaches go out. They don't normally retire in their own accord. That's just how it goes. So I do think he stays another year, but he needs to focus on what we need help on. You need better route running. Your offensive line needs a little bit more protection because it wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best. It was middle of the pack when it comes to pressures, sacks. So that's not what the Chiefs of previous years were. They were towards the top. They were towards the top. It gives these guys that aren't as great as route running time to get open, but they did have a Tyreek Hill that was incredible out route running and speed and agility, yards after catch. They don't have Tyreek Hill. So I do think that it's going to be tough for him because that's not something he's ever done. He's always just get a speedy wide receiver. I'll make fun play calls. It'll work. It just isn't working. Teams have figured this out. Defenses have gotten so fast that the gap between the fast wide receivers and the fast DBs are very small. The Denver Broncos in their own division have speedy DBs absolutely everywhere. That team's defense is disgusting, and you're going to have to play them twice a year. You need to have more solutions. Plus, you have zero running game. Cool, you'll have like 80 rushing yards a game at most. Like, you're towards the bottom 10. I didn't see if they're bottom 5, but they're definitely bottom 10 when it comes to rushing yards per game. If you look at all the teams that are Super Bowl contenders, not just into playoffs, you look at Super Bowl contenders, most of them are right there in the top 10 of rushing yards. Playing good defense and rushing the ball has always, in football, translated in being a Super Bowl contender. You also have this top 5, the top 3 greatest of all time quarterback. When it's all said and done, we might be talking about 1 or 2. Some people will already say he's past Joe Montana. I said, let him get 4, let him get more stats. We'll put him ahead of Joe Montana. But right now, top 5 to top 3 greatest quarterback of all time, Pat Mahomes. And he has no running game, inconsistent wide receivers. Honestly, can't stop getting in trouble off the field too. Like, we got to stay on the field, stay healthy, and get better. And that's the exact opposite. They've been relying year after year more and more on Mahomes. So now to the Green Bay Packers. They just lost Micah Parsons. And it looks like the end of the year, for the rest of the year. And that's just brutal. Micah Parsons has more pressures on the quarterback than the next 5 pass rushers on the team combined. And we saw as soon as Micah Parsons went out, Denver was already starting to come back. But when he went out, Green Bay had no answers. For the rest of the game, they had no answers to Denver. And it looks like that this could be the case when they play the Bears with how elusive Caleb Williams is. I think the Bears are going to win in Chicago against them without Micah Parsons. I really do. And I think they clinched the 1 seed. Not the 1 seed, but the division. I think Micah Parsons was the biggest point of this whole team. People will say, oh, no, well, Love's playing incredible. No, the best player on this team was Micah Parsons. There's no doubt about it. You just lost your best player and the staple of your pass rushing defense. The amount of pressures, let alone the sacks he's had, is better than any one individual player for a team other than Myles Garrett. That's it. Like, when you look at it, pass rushing against a QB, you take Myles Garrett, and then afterwards you're taking Micah Parsons, and it's close. Myles Garrett has the sacks over Micah, but Micah has the pressures. He has more pressures than Mr. Myles Garrett over there. Green Bay was a top 5 Super Bowl contender before this game. And that's why this game was so amazing. I picked Denver to win in Denver. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game. I actually did not expect as much offense as there was. And once Green Bay took a good lead, I think it was a 10-point lead, I thought it was over. But then Denver just fights. They fight. And they came back and the injury happened, and then there was nothing they could do defensively to stop them. Green Bay went from Super Bowl contender to hopefully they win the division. That's the truth. It's hopefully they win the division. Can they beat the Bears in Chicago without Micah Parsons? Micah Parsons gave Caleb Williams a lot of fits, and they only won by 7. in Green Bay. Bears have not given Green Bay that much issues against a top Green Bay team in probably 20 years. I haven't seen it. Maybe a Jay Cutler team, but that was borderline 20 years ago. That was like 15 years ago. But still, that's like the last time a Chicago team has gone into Green Bay and given Green Bay hell with a good Green Bay team. Because I know there was a couple years there that Green Bay was just but now this is a Super Bowl contending, and you take Micah Parsons out of there, I'm favoring the Bears by at least 3 points. That's my opinion. If I saw that it was a pick 'em, I'm picking the Bears. And that's unfortunate. But could Green Bay still win the division? Of course. They beat the Bears. They basically win the division. Watson's injury, luckily, doesn't look season ending. The last thing I saw was last night, the day before I did this recording, and it said that it looked like it could be a week to two. He could be game to game. It was a shoulder chest injury. I don't know how long that you're going to have him out because they're fighting for a division. Knowing the history of NFL teams and players, if they're fighting for a division or a 1 seed, which they still are technically, they push the players. The players push themselves. And that could result into something bad. I personally would have Watson sit the next week or two. Just be like, hey, we're going to make the postseason regardless. We just can't lose out. And I don't think they would. They have a game against Minnesota and they have a game against the Bears, which I think they'll beat Minnesota. I don't care what version of Minnesota it is. They're going to beat them, even with their issues. I would personally have Watson, their best catching wide receiver, for that crazy play they need in the back of the end zone, like against the Giants. Reed was not making that catch. Josh Jacobs wasn't making that catch. Dobbs was not making that catch. Only Watson was making that catch in the Giants game that won them the game. That's your best receiving receiver. Let him sit. Let him recover. Let him be ready for the postseason. You're already missing a massive weapon. If you risk it and he gets hurt, then you could just cop up the postseason altogether. You still have the big play possibilities on offense, and you might have to do shootouts through the postseason. Let Watson recover. My opinion. This is me being coach. Obviously, I'm not a coach whatsoever, but that is my opinion. If he gets injured when he comes back against one of these defenses, I'm just going to be throwing my hands up, and you're probably going to hear me yell at Green Bay on this. I'd love to see Green Bay at full strength going into the postseason. There's a couple really good teams, but we don't know. Is this Josh Allen's time? They just go into New England and beat New England. New England went into Buffalo and beat Buffalo. Buffalo's 0-4 in primetime games this year. They're undefeated in anything that isn't a primetime game. Very odd stat there. Josh Allen's not really one that shies away from the moment, but this year it completely looks like it. When it comes to primetime games, I don't understand it. If you look at that game, it was 21-0 at one point, and Josh Allen and the Bills just didn't seem like they're out of it. I personally never thought they were out of it. Like, even then, I was thinking, damn, Bills get a touchdown here, make a stop. This game could be interesting before halftime. That's what happened. No Mahomes, no Burrows, possibly no Lamar, with Steelers winning again last night. And they play each other. I think there's going to be no Lamar in a postseason. And Lamar, even if he does get in, he doesn't look himself. He looks injured. He really does. He really still looks like that hamstring is bugging him. It'll probably come out after they're eliminated or something, that something's going on there. They have the style to beat the Denver Broncos, Josh Allen and the Bills. Denver doesn't do well against a mobile quarterback when it comes defensively. When they can create more time, rush the ball, make sure an extra safety or linebacker is up close, it gives the openings. Plus, they throw a lot to tight ends, which Denver gives up a decent amount of points to tight ends when it comes to like fantasy and just yards and stuff like that compared to wide receivers. Their wide receivers, you have Surtain out there and the rest of the guys in the DBs for Denver that just absolutely shut shit down. I think the Bills could go to Denver. They could win. Would I pick Denver at this moment? Probably. But is this Josh Allen's best chance? I would say yes, because there's no Mahomes in the postseason. People would be like, oh, when they were the 1 seed and Mahomes had to come to him, that was their best chance. It was too, yes, I'll give you that. But it's not one of those cases where you have like no Mahomes. He still had to go against Mahomes and the Chiefs that just have his number in the postseason. I think it's 0-4. He's lost 4 times to Mahomes in the postseason. I think that with Mahomes being in an injury situation and the team being eliminated, this is Buffalo's time to really put a stamp on it. Be like, hey, Denver, next year you guys are even going to be better. New England, next year you guys are going to be even better. I understand we're not the 1 seed right the second or 2 seed, but this is our time. We've been waiting. This is our time. We're blown by you guys. We're getting to the Super Bowl, and we don't care who we're playing. We thought that was a year ago. We thought that was 2 years ago. The time is now if the Bills are going to do it. Their team is all right structured. It's not the greatest structured team. There is definitely flaws. When you look on paper, New England and Denver just have way better rosters. Do I think the Bills do it? I don't. I do think Denver, their defense alone. And then you have Bo Nix. He plays very inconsistent. But if he plays consistent enough in the postseason and they have home field advantage, I don't see a team in the AFC beating them. The NFC, we have the Eagles that they just have to win a game, where the Cowboys need to lose a game. They clinch their division. It'll be the first time in like 10, 15 years that the NFC East has been won by the same person 2 years in a row. Each year it switches for some reason. I don't know why, but very inconsistent division. But you know what? Good for the Eagles. I personally don't like the Eagles. I'm a Giants fan, so whatever. I think Eagles are first round exit anyway. I don't know what the issue is over there, if it's locker room, if it's coaching, or whatever the case is, but that team is so inconsistent. They look great this weekend, but they didn't play good. But any good team they played against, they either get lucky and win, or they just don't look good and they lose. That's really the case. When you come to the postseason, you're playing only good teams. I think they're a first round exit. Whoever they're playing against, I don't care. They're going to be the home team. I'm picking against them. If it's Seattle, oh, please. Easy money. Easy money. I don't care what people say. Oh, Sam Darnold, big moment. I don't give a shit. That defense is going to Goomba stomp everything at Eagles. Everything. Absolutely everything. Rams, I don't know the severity of the injuries. I didn't see a report on how Devontae and Puka Nacua are doing. I'm assuming Devontae's out for the rest of the season, like at least the rest of the regular season, because it is a hamstring. Like, you just can't take risks with hamstrings. I hope it's not anything that is actual season ending. But Puka Nacua, you have 2 great running backs over there. And if someone wants to say, oh, well, one of their running backs is a system running back, stop it. They're both putting up touchdowns, if not multiple touchdowns a week. This is one of the best offenses combined with one of the best defenses. This is the best team in NFL. The question is, can they stay healthy? And right now, that was a scary fourth quarter. Seeing Puka go out like that, seeing Devontae go out like that, it's scary. You have those 2 on the field, that opens up everyone offensively. They had 2 touchdowns to their tight end last week. It was an incredible game for them. They were down early. Detroit gave everything they had, knowing they have to win this game. They can't lose. They gave it everything. And then Rams said, all right, that was a good first half. Good first half. Our time. And they came back, stormed through them. And honestly, if you look at the first half or second half, you could say the second half they beat the brakes off of them. You would be like, oh, the score doesn't say they beat the brakes off of them. But if you look at strictly the second half, that second half they beat the brakes off of them. That was not a Dan Campbell type team out there for Detroit in second half. Unfortunate, because Detroit looked really promising, and they might miss the wild card altogether, because you have San Francisco, Seattle, and Green Bay all right there. Green Bay or Bears, but I think it's going to be Green Bay as a wild card. So it means Detroit's the odd man out, which sucks because this team is a really good football team and could scare and compete with any other team in NFL. Like, no one wants to play Detroit. No one. The Rams didn't want to play Detroit, as we saw. That first half, they took that to the Rams, but just didn't work. You have the Rams injuries. You have Green Bay injuries. Eagles don't look good. Seattle, man, this is it. Sam Darnold, you got paid. You didn't get paid superstar money, but you got paid. They trust you. You have the best wide receiver this year in football. Like, Puka Nacua is still up there. Yes, I know there's a Jamar Chase and there's Justin Jefferson. But if you look statistically, the best wide receiver in football this year is Jackson Smith and Jigba. Best wide receiver. And you have the best wide receivers. Your running backs are no slouches, but they haven't been playing to the level they could. Good tight end. Unbelievable defense. This is the time. This is it. The AFC has injuries. They have young teams over there that are doing well. Your conference is in shambles. Legitimately in shambles. Like, Seattle, you should see this. And Sam Darnold, you need to show up like you're doing in regular season and the postseason. Don't pull Minnesota Vikings thing you did last year. You just don't turn over the ball. You guys win. Right now, if we say something's going on, Puka's out for a while, and Devontae Adams is out for a while, you guys play on Thursday night. I'm thinking both of them should be out that game. You guys are playing, I believe, in Seattle. You should be favored. You need to win this game. You have to. You lose this, it's already over. You're now wildcard team, and now the idea of you guys going through the NFC goes down drastically. Like, you could still be top wildcard team and win this game against the Rams, and then we'll say you just lose the last week of the season or some shit like that. You know what? Whatever. It happens. Like, I'll still believe in the Seahawks going through the postseason. You can't lose this game. Banged up Rams. They still look good. I know that's the MVP over there too. So it's like, you have to go get them. I think this is a do or die for the confidence of the Seattle Seahawks this week. If they lose this, I don't think they'll have the confidence going into the postseason. That's me personally. Obviously not in the field, but this is a must-win for Seattle, not a must-win for the Rams. Rams win this, they just put a team down in the dirt. Last storyline I want to talk about real quick in the NFL is Phillip Rivers. Welcome back. Should you have been back? I don't know. I think there's definitely better options. I understand there's some backlash and everything of the whole Cam Newton should have gotten it, with Cam getting all angry about it. But I do believe with what is going on with the Colts, Cam Newton would have been a better option. And I do think Cam would have been fine with just the read options, and like, he could hand off the ball too, but he can also run and be a truck himself. And I understand they'll be like, oh, but it's still a lot of the same system that Phillip Rivers was on. Fully understand that, because his last team was the Colts 4.5 years ago. But I don't think that means that they should have still picked him up. He's not in good shape. Half the throws he threw were really wonky. They looked rough. He did great as a game manager, and that's all they really wanted him to do. And he kind of said that in his press conference before the game, that he's just there to hand off the ball and play good defense and not turn over the ball, make some reads, and that's it. But I understand all of that, but it's still not great. Not a great situation there. I don't think Phillip Rivers should have been the guy back, my opinion. But we'll just see how this ends out. But I think Cam Newton should have been the nod. And there's probably other guys that are free agents right now that I can't think of off the top of my head that should have been put in instead of him. I think at least with Cam, with his read option ability and him running the ball, QB sneaks on 3rd and 4th and 1 and 2. Like, I just think it gives you more opportunities, and just tell Cam there is no turnovers. Like, we'd rather you rush the ball 15 times, get 3 yards a carry, whatever, rather than you throw a pick. Like, that's honestly, that's legitimately, you tell him, if you don't see a guy wide open, don't throw the ball. We don't trust your arm yet. Fine. Is he too charismatic? Whatever. Who cares? Legitimately, I'm talking about winning football games, and I don't think Phillip Rivers is the option. I think Cam should have been an option if we talk about those two. All right, that is it for NFL. Let me get into the UFC. The UFC is in their first ever off season. They have never taken a 6-week break since I've been following it, and I've been following since 2012, 2011, hardcore. That's when I started following it. But as a kid on Spike TV, I would watch Matt Hughes, George St. Pierre, Chuck Liddell. You had Rampage Jackson, Rashad Evans, John Jones at the beginning of his career. Insane that he's been around this long. But just all these beasts. Back then, I was follow on like Spike TV. I wasn't purchasing pay-per-views when I was a teenager and a kid. But since 2012, 2011 is when I really started diving into it. But this is the first time I have seen an off season. I understand they've been extending it more and more each year. If you look back the last 3 or 4 years, Dana is really trying to take weeks off during holidays. Fully respect that. And I understand they're going into, but they could have done one more like UFC card, like maybe because today is December 16th. They could have easily done one Saturday. That's like the 20th. And then taken off next week. And so 5 weeks. But, I mean, we ended off decently. Manel Kape just finished Brendan Royval in impressive fashion. He's 100% the number one contender over Taira, the Japanese fighter. In my opinion, I think he should be fighting over the Japanese fighter. Even though I really like him, and I think that's a really good style against Vaughn. But I think Manel Kape versus Vaughn is just so explosive. It's one of those, if we're going towards what Dana White, which I'm about to get into, has been bought out and is the puppet for Paramount, that is the fight that they would make 100%. Me personally, as if I had to choose which one I'm picking over the last 2 weeks' performance, I'm picking Manel Kape. But that's just me. I could be wrong on that 100%, but next one is Dana White in general. We look at what the main events of these cards are. We're going to start with January. Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. Paddy Pimblett, if you do pay attention over the last 2 months, has went from like 11 up to 5 in the rankings. You know how many times he has fought in that period of time? 0. You know how many people that are ranked fighters currently he has fought in the UFC? 1. You know how many in his last 4 opponents, you know what their combined record were in the UFC recently? Their last 13 fights. 0-13. That's insane. I like Paddy. I honestly was saying as soon as he won, I don't want to see him fight Justin Gaethje. I want to see him fight Arman Tsaroukian as the number one contender. Because I think he's that good. I think he beats Justin Gaethje easily. My thing is he doesn't deserve to be here over Arman. Justin, he just lost one by knockout by Max Holloway. Then he wins one. He's won 4 of his last 5. Paddy's won a bunch. Arman's won a bunch. So it's like, yes, I understand that, but then you have to go strength of resume. And honestly, the only guy that should be number one contender is Arman, and one of these two fighting him. That's the truth. I love watching MMA. I love watching UFC, especially because it's the big leagues. That's like me watching a AA minor league baseball game versus watching, like when you think of Bellator that's no longer around, or PFL and stuff like that, one championship and stuff. You look at them and then you look at UFC. It's like a AA baseball team versus the LA Dodgers. It's just the case. It's like, it's not that I'm disrespecting these things. It's like, we've seen how many former champions or champions come over this year alone to the UFC. How many of them have won? The answer is 0. They've all lost. LeRon Murphy, spinning elbow knocked out guy. It's just everyone has been. Yair Rodriguez won his fight, and Yair's has obvious big flaws in his game. So Dana White, puppet master, or no, he's the puppet, Paramount puppet master, has picked Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, which will be a very violent, exciting fight. I think Arman slipped in there would be an exciting fight too. I really do, because he's finished most of his fighters. I thought his fight with Dan Hooker was exciting. Him getting caught into guillotines and doing that alligator roll, that you see him train, that weird head movement thing, being on his head and doing this weird gymnastic shit. That's fucking cool. That's different. And then he's on top and he's beating the hell out of you. Against Charles Oliveira, you forget how much damage he was landing on Charles Oliveira. People are like, oh, Charles won that fight. I've watched that fight 4 times. Arman won that fight. The first time I watched it at UFC 300, I said Charles won. But I watched it a second time, a third time, and a fourth time. Ever since then, Arman has won that fight. Without the bias, without the crazy crowd and everything, and me having people over and having some drinks, I can see that, okay, Arman did win that fight. He did. He just landed way more damage. People could say, oh, he was out cold in the submission at 3rd round. Ref didn't catch it. If he was or if he wasn't, ref didn't catch it. Arman should be the number 1 guy, and Dana just hates the man. He really does. And he knows that put 2 big names against each other, first card. It was supposed to be Ilya versus Paddy. I 100% believe that. I do believe it was they're pushing Paddy regardless for the Paramount because he's the biggest name. You can say Justin Gaethje's bigger name, but the thing is, people, even common fans, know Justin Gaethje has been around a long time and know that he's just going to get steamrolled. So I'm excited for the fight because it's an awesome fight, but it's not the right fight. And Dana made that for Paramount. And then you have the next card, Volk versus Lopez 2. This one even makes less sense. I will try to explain it from both sides for you. But Volk's last fight was 7 months ago, 8 months ago, and it was against Lopez. He beat Lopez 3 or 4 rounds to 1. 3-2 or 4-1. That's it. He did way more damage. He did get clipped in the 2nd round, and it looked scary for a second. And that's the issue. That's the only way Diego Lopez is winning the fight is by clipping him, putting him on his back. And he needs to use his grappling more, which I hated Diego Lopez's coaching in that first fight. Absolutely hated it. He should have initiated the grappling. Never did. It was always Volk initiating the grappling. You put Volk on his back, he's way less dangerous. You put Volk trying to scramble to get up, he's way less dangerous, and you have more opportunities to land the big shots. But I think that's what will change in the second fight. I'll give you my early prediction. I do think Diego Lopez does beat Volk in this rematch, but it still doesn't mean it's the right match. It should have been LaRon Murphy. LaRon Murphy's been active, so has Diego Lopez, but he didn't just lose 3-2 or 4-1 to the champ. And he's undefeated, and he just took a fight against a guy that was not in an organization, that is a champion in another organization, and had a highlight KO. And he's a top 5 in the division. It should have been LaRon Murphy. Movsar Evloev, that one's tough. He's been so inactive. But I do believe he should be fighting for a championship over Diego Lopez also. Another undefeated fighter. And I'm not all in on just being undefeated. I want to say that. Because, once again, you can just fight guys here and there, kind of pick your things. You never take a fight on short notice, ever. Some of these other guys, like Diego Lopez, will take fights on short notice any given time. That's just who he is versus some of them. So you're going to get losses that way sometimes. So Movsar will never do that. He will always have 3 months ahead of time notice. And he'll take a fighter if a change of opponent happens, but he will never be the one that will just jump in on 2 weeks' notice and fight someone. It'll just never happen. I do think that's smart for your career, but it doesn't get you the fan base, which is the pull, which will now why you're not in this title situation Diego Lopez is. Fans love Diego Lopez. He has both Brazilian and Mexican fan bases. He has the goofy hairstyle. He's violent as all hell. He just went against Diego Lopez that everyone was saying, we want Volk to retire because if Gene Silva fights him, he's going to knock him out. And Diego Lopez beat him like a redheaded stepchild. I mean, it was bad. He beat him up. It was rough. And I think that Diego Lopez doesn't deserve the title shot at the moment, but I will go into what he should be doing because he does have the title shot. He needs to stop playing good guy. He needs to play bad guy here. He's going to Australia. He got a title shot that he even knows he probably wasn't number one guy for. So I think he should go full bad guy, start messing with the crowd. Not with Volk, exactly. Just the crowd, because I think this is Volk's last fight regardless. Volk wins, he retires. If he loses, he retires. There's no reason to do a trilogy, to be honest. He's just getting older. Diego wins by finish would be the only way he wins. I don't think he wins by decision. And I think because of these things with these matchmakings, most violent fights possible to make are probably Volk versus Diego Lopez in that division. Lerone Murphy would pitter-patter with Volk through 5 rounds. It would be a point fight. This won't be a point fight. And Paddy versus Justin won't be a point fight. It won't be. It'll be violent. It looks like that Dana basically like, hey, I'm going to make Paramount happy. I'm going to make sure. And I understand there's other people. There's Hunter Campbell. There's Sean Shelby in the system. But I understand they help with it. But Dana's the face. He's the one that does the poll. He's the one that's doing a lot of the business stuff. They help with the matchmaking. But he probably tells them, like, yo, we need violent for these cards. We want to make Paramount happy. They just spent $7.7 billion on us. So that's where I think he did that purposely. Do I think this will be a long-term thing? No. I think it's just to get the ball rolling, make Paramount happy, pull some big numbers. We might even hear that it will be undisputed title coming soon because Ilya is having personal life situations with him and his soon-to-be ex-wife and everything like that. I'm not going to get too much into that. That's his business, not mine. I'm here to talk about sports. Just hope everything goes well. I love watching Ilya in the octagon. But whoever's fighting here is probably going to end up fighting Arman. I do believe so. I don't think Ilya will be back in time. So I think this might end up being an undisputed title. And I think backtracking a little bit, Dana White definitely long-term will probably go back to closer to number one contenders. What fights make sense? Yes, I know the last year or two it's been slipping a lot because they're trying to get big fights, and that's the issue when you don't build superstars. Like, he doesn't want to build superstars because he doesn't want a Conor McGregor situation where they have more control than the UFC, which Conor did at times. He did have more control than the UFC. And how many times Dana shut down boxing and they end up doing a boxing fight? It's just the thing with is that when you don't push your fighters to make superstars, the issue with that is you're going to have less situations of them making big name themselves, and you're kind of having years where it's like, I kind of know who these guys are, but I don't. And that's for the common fans. You got the big thing is you're promoting to the common fans. The diehards are diehards. Same thing with any sport on earth. Diehards are diehards. They're going to pay attention because they want to. They love to. You're trying to draw common fans. That is why this fight is made. That is why Diego Lopez is made. That's why Lerone Murphy is not made. That is why Evelev isn't made. That is why Arman Tazoukian isn't made. People can't relate to Arman Tazoukian. He had a golden spoon his whole life. He had insane money his whole life. And which makes it kind of impressive that he does work as hard as he does in a fight. He doesn't need to do that. But at the same point, people can't relate to him. People will relate. Paddy Pimblett came from a broke-ass area. Justin Gaethje was never rich by any means. I think he was a middle-wage kid when he was a kid and everything. Like, people can relate. Diego Lopez, Brazil, Mexican, he automatically gets the fan bases. For some reason, those fan bases travel. They love their fighters. They're going to push for Diego. Even in Australia, you're going to hear some cheers, but you're going to hear a lot of boos because unwanted title shot and in Australia. But I'm telling you, there will be some Brazilians/Mexicans that travel. It's just how it is in UFC. And the last thing I want to get to with UFC before I get into my New York Yankees, because I'm an all New York fan. Love Yankees, Giants, New York Rangers, Knicks, all New York. I'm not a Mets fan. I like the Brooklyn Nets, but they're just whatever. I still consider them New Jersey Nets, even though they've been Brooklyn forever. But Knicks are my team. So I'm one of those New York fans that I like certain teams, but I don't like others. Like there's the rivalry, Yankees and Mets. But let me get into the last thing in the UFC real quick. And that is welterweight. Welterweight has the possibility of being the most exciting division by far, but it also has the chance of being very stale. If you go back to Kamaru Usman's time as champion, the division was stale. But that's because Kamaru Usman was just running through some top guys and no one else wanted to fight. They just wanted, hey, this guy's active, he's going to fight. Islam is going to fight twice a year, hopefully. And that's what I'm assuming he'll fight. I think he'll fight in like April, May. And then he'll fight possibly like November, December. That's my guess. And I hope this division keeps moving and doesn't be like, oh, let's see if I get picked up. There are so many good top contenders in this division. 5 or 6 of them minimum. Sean Brady's now going to move down to 155, which does hurt the division, but still, you have Morales, you have Shavkat Rakhmonov, you have Ian Gary, you have Kamaru Usman. Joaquin Buckley's a little bit out of the picture, but he's up there. And there's plenty more, but there's guys up there everywhere. The former champ that just lost, he'll be a good number 1 contender fight or a good fight with someone else. There's so many good things. I just hope they don't just pick off of what makes the most money and they pick who's rightfully there. And I hope the division keeps fighting to make number 1 contenders. I don't want 4 guys to sit out to the next time Islam fights. Be like, hopefully he picks me. Oh, maybe after he wins this fight, maybe I get the chance. I don't want to see that. I don't think any of us want to see that. This division has a chance. 155 has been the most exciting weight class for a while. People say 205 because Alex Pereira, but that's it. Other than Alex Pereira, the only exciting real fight was Khalil Roundtree versus Yuri Prochazka, and that just recently happened. So that's really it for that weight class. Heavyweight's been rough. 125 has been Pantoja. Now he's injured. 125 is in a good spot. Really is. 125. Those flyweights have a great spot. 135. Interesting spot. Peter Yan obviously is a king of violence. I personally love him, but I also like Merab too, because he was fighting so active. I love champions that are active, even if they're not the most exciting. It's like, you know what? I can rely on Merab. I think Peter Yan will be somewhat active. I think he'll get 2 fights in, maybe 3. As a champion, if you give me 2 fights a year, I can't bitch. I really can't. I can bitch about the heavyweight division, 100%. 100% I can bitch about that. 145, we already talked. 155, talked about. 170, 185, we'll see. I hope Khamzat fights more actively than he was. He fought 1 time in almost 2 years. I really hope he gets more active. I don't want to see 1 title fight a year. That would be worst case scenario. Be like, oh, but he's interesting. But his last fight was kind of boring, but that's also on Duplessis. That is. So 170 is most interesting weight class, but has potential to be stale. Like the Kamaru Usman situation, where they all just sat around and waited and said, I hope I'm next. Please, everyone fight. You're telling me Morales versus Shavkat, while it wouldn't be awesome to watch, while you have those 2 undefeated fighters with a whole bunch of finishes go up against each other, while you have Islam is pushing for Kamaru Usman, which I don't think is the right one. I think Ian Gary is the right name at the moment, just because his his work, plus he's been active. That's the issue with Shavkat is he's been injured the entire year. Didn't have a fight this entire year. None. Last time he fought was December, November of 2024. You can't give him a title shot in 2026 off of a year and a half of inactivity. You just can't. That's my opinion. Just, I don't believe in that. Unfortunately, it's been injuries, but it is what it is. You have to fight again. That's why him and Morales, I think Ian Gary gets to fight, and then Kamaru Usman's going to sit there and play the waiting game. That's my opinion. Yes, I do believe Kamaru Usman has a resume where he should get title fight, but it wouldn't be the right fight. He is on a 1-fight winning streak off of a 3-fight losing streak. Why does that deserve a title shot? You look at his last 5, that's 2-3. Why does that deserve a title fight? Oh, but what he's done his previous 5, 6 before that. Okay, I understand that. But let's look at Ian Gary. Ian Gary has been fighting guys in the top 15 his last 6 or 7 fights, and he's only lost to 1, and it was a 3-2, so a 48-47 decision loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov. And he had Shavkat in really bad positions. And if you told me Shavkat versus the champ happened right now, Islam Makhachev, I'm picking Shavkat. So the closest guy to beat Shavkat, and the only guy that didn't get finished by Shavkat is Ian Gary. That's his only loss ever and in the UFC. And Ian Gary just had a great performance other than the eye pokes. The eye pokes, that was, God, they need to do something with the eye pokes. That'll be for another podcast. I'll break that down because we're in off season. So I'll be breaking down issues in the UFC currently. But other than the eye pokes, Ian Gary had a very good performance against Bilal Muhammad. Some will say because of the eye pokes, but I don't know. We'll see. So that was it for UFC. Let me go quickly into baseball. It'll be short and sweet, and then we're going to wrap this up. New York Yankees, my favorite team. I'm going to cover them a little bit more than other teams because they are my favorite team. They've done absolutely nothing. Irrelevant. They talked about being under the $300 million cap, which they're 277. So that means they wouldn't be able to get Cody Bellinger, wouldn't be able to get Kyle Tucker, wouldn't be able to trade for a decent reliever or sign a big reliever like what happened with Edwin Diaz. And I mean, they might not even be able to get Michael King. I don't know what the hell is going on other than they really are trying to do that. They signed Armand Rosario, $2.5 million a year. I think it was a 2-year deal, if I'm correct. Could have been a 1, but I think a 2-year deal. He did great against lefties, so it might be a platoon thing where, okay, lefties pitching, Ben Rice, you're sitting. He'll be coming in. We'll move someone over to first base, whatever the case is. And they might put him in against lefties and have like Ben Rice against righties. Like that could be what's happening. But your best first baseman on a roster right now is Ben Rice, if I'm correct. And he's not a great first baseman by any means. But he's not a great catcher either. But he can hit the ball harder than most players in the MLB. They need to do something. Like, they missed out on Pete Alonso, which we saw what happens when you put a 1-2 big at-bats with each other that are consistent with Aaron Judge. He made it to the World Series. You're not going to start off starting pitching healthy, so you do need a starting pitcher even for a tiny bit of time. So I think Michael King is the move. He's been in New York. He played well in New York. Actually played exceptional in New York. We made him a starting pitcher, then shipped him off for the Juan Soto trade. And he's been great. I think if the price tag isn't too ridiculous, I think Michael King's a good option. And I do believe you need to get an outfielder of some sort, like a fielding outfielder that's consistent hitting. I think Stephen Kwan is the move. Go for a trade. You're going to have to give up Spencer Jones. But at the same point, it doesn't seem like the Yankees have any interest in bringing in Spencer Jones. I personally want to see him play. I've seen him play minor leagues. And every spring training I go down there and try to watch some games because I'm in Florida. So I get to see a lot of spring training games. I just don't think they're going to do anything with him. So trade him. He has good value. And Cleveland's an organization that is going to do something. The New York Yankees, the highest money-making franchise in the sport. People say the Dodgers. No, you look at who's made more money. It's still the New York Yankees. And you're talking about staying under 300 million, while the Dodgers just got the best reliever in the last 5 years on their team, Edwin Diaz. It's like, yeah, he didn't have the greatest last year coming off of the Tommy John surgery, but he's still the guy. So I don't understand. And then Pete Alonso went to the Orioles. Jesus Christ. The Blue Jays grabbed Dylan Cease. I don't know how that one's going to pan out, depending on how Dylan Cease pitches, but he does have the movement. He has the stuff, and now he's going into a stadium that's going to be mostly covered, so he doesn't have to worry about altitude affecting the baseballs whatsoever, even though San Diego wasn't that big of a deal either. But Dylan Cease has the stuff to lock in. I just want to say, like, he had a bad year last year. It does not mean he'll have a bad year this year by any means. Yeah, if you're a Yankee fan, you're pissed. If you are a Yankee hater, you're loving this, because the Yankees will be, if they get any injuries to their big guys, like Cole comes back, he's injured, the team is automatically out of the postseason. Automatically. Every other team in the division, even the Rays, have made moves. The Rays, the team that is a bottom feeder when it comes to spending money, has made moves. But the New York Yankees aren't. Dodgers still making moves. The Mets look like the same thing. They're doing the same thing Yankees are. They're like, we're done. But, I mean, Steve Cohen has a reason. Like, he's spent so much money for nothing. And it's funny, Juan Soto just spent all this money saying about how, oh, I see a better future with this team, and then they get rid of everyone. So, it's kind of funny. Irony hits. But I think New York baseball in general is in a bad spot. If you're an LA Dodger fan, if you're just a hater of New York baseball, you are happy as a pig in shit right now. You really are, because it does not look promising for either the Mets or the Yankees. And the Dodgers, my opinion is until I see a roster in a consistent team that looks like they could beat them, I never thought the Brewers were going to beat the Dodgers. Never. I don't care if they're the best team in the league. I don't care if they had a better record against them in the regular season. None of that fucking matters to me. I never thought for a second they stood a chance, and they got 4-0 swept. I didn't expect 4-0 swept. I thought like 5 or 6 games, but a 4-0 sweep, I'm like, yeah, the Dodgers are going to cruise. And Blue Jays made it all the way to the World Series Game 7. Very weird team, very gelled team. Bo Bichette's still out there. Want to know what's going to happen with him. Yeah, that's it for baseball. The Dodgers are the king until further notice. And next week, hopefully, there'll be some signings or something, so I can bring up some baseball stuff. I'll go more in depth with the UFC and maybe talk about the eye pokes, talk about things that need to change going into next year that need to be locked in, and maybe some matchmaking. And I might self-promote a fighter. Tell me if you're interested in that, and tell me a fighter you like that you just feel like doesn't promote themselves or doesn't get promoted by the UFC that you want me to self-promote, and I'll make a whole spiel for him. I'll make a promo for him. I'll build their character up. Like, that's the thing. UFC is about characters too. You can't just be your fighting performance unless you're Shavkat, where you legitimately are 19-0 with 18 finishes. If you don't finish every fighter, you need to be able to do something on a mic or have a personality. And NFL, we'll see next week. I'll be back on next Tuesday. This was Sean Ryan, SPR Sports News. This is my first podcast. Thank you for listening. See you next week.